The focus today is religion and service in the American Civil War because, of course, you have to think about this is we continue to be a tremendously religious nation, a tremendous service-oriented nation, and what impact does that have when you think about the American Civil War? I'm going to move over here so I'm not standing in front of you. All right? Oh, I just forgot the camera. All right? So, in particular, this is the Knights of Columbus, and so we wanted to focus a bit on Catholic faith in the American Civil War. I will admittedly tell you that I am no expert on Catholicism in the American Civil War. I did go to the University of, to St. Louis University, Jesuit tradition, so I can at least claim some Catholic connection there. But here you can see a very famous image from the American Civil War of a prayer service, soldiers standing around a tent that is set up, and at the top of this, there's a cross at the top of that. And so let's get into it. One of the very famous images from this period, this is from the Library of Congress collection. This is called The Triumph. It's by Morris H. Traubel, and it's circa 1861, maybe into 1862. And you can see, when I show you a close-up of this, you can see that it's got distinctly religious overtones to it. Okay? Here you have the King Cotton. This is the South as an alligator. It's got the crown on. You've got the bale of cotton here. It's King Cotton. The slave is down at the bottom, shackled. You've got this battle going on behind us. She's wearing a sash that says "E pluribus unum," out of many one. And then you've got the national eagle to represent symbolism. And then you've got this very religious component to it in the middle here. You've got the scales of justice. This is supposed to represent almost a Mary figure with the baby Jesus, and then you've got you've got the cross here, and you've got in the background varying leaders from the American past. You've got George Washington, there's Benjamin Franklin, and you've got varying figures from the past. And this is supposed to represent how some in the faith communities view what the American Civil War could be. This is actually, in many ways, a precursor to how many people come to see the war. And what I mean by that is that there's very few people in the North in 1861 who are viewing the American Civil War as a fight to free slaves. Is the war over the issue of slavery? Yes, unquestionably, the war is over the issue of slavery. But it has far more to do with economic power, with issues of political power. Abraham Lincoln is probably the perfect example of this. He is a moderate Republican. The Republican Party under Lincoln is opposed to expansion of slavery in the West. They are not promoting or proposing the immediate abolition of slaves or the emancipation of slaves. And I'll talk a little bit about the difference between those terms. I see the ideas behind them in very, very different ways, that there's a difference between abolition and emancipation. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But so when most soldiers go off to war, and especially true, Connecticut is the perfect example of this. We are not, many people think of Connecticut as a largely abolitionist state. There is no question we were not an abolitionist state. We were probably the most anti-abolition state in all of New England. We were, at the time of the American Revolution, the largest slaveholding state in New England. We get rid of slavery through gradual emancipation in 1784, but don't completely outlaw slavery until 1848, just years before the Civil War. Connecticut has a very interesting and troubling race history, but where I started with this is that you clearly see that she is down front center, the shackled slave, that this is a battle over the concept of slavery. Most in Connecticut wouldn't have accepted that kind of an idea at the outset. Most who are going off to war or supporting the war by being at home to raise, supplies for the troops and whatnot, they see this as a war for union. that this is about saving this representative system of government, that that's what the real focal point is, that it's not, people are not going to fight to free slaves. This changes as the war goes on, and I'll talk about that as we move along. I want to mention one other thing in this. You can see down at the bottom here, see the serpent? Okay? This can be a metaphor for two different things. It could be a metaphor for the serpent in the garden. It's also a metaphor for what anti-war Democrats in the North are called, and they were referred to as copperheads, venomous serpents who would strike at you from below and undercut your ability and your focus on the war.